All right, let's talk about Joppa's stream from yesterday as we go over here and slaughter some of these orcs. So yesterday, Joppa stream started out with EQ Guesser. That is going to be something that he's going to start doing on, I believe, every Thursday when he streams, if he streams on a Thursday. So be prepared for that. That lasted for about 35 or 40 minutes or so. So that's what was going on at the beginning of the stream. The Enchanter spell that was accidentally left out of the recent update will be coming in, which is Commanding Will. Adjusted Necro spells that seem to be broken, which are the Siphon Life and Blood Tap abilities. They weren't really broken. The numbers were just a little bit off, so he kind of adjusted those in the beginning of the stream. He did talk about con changes a lot, so if you are curious about the con changes, you might want to tune in around the 46-minute mark. And what he basically said about the con changes was that the white fights, so like white con mobs, are going to be even fights. Blue con mobs are going to be very similar to even fights, so maybe a little bit easier, but not really any penalties added to them. Light blue mobs where you're going to start to get the penalties added. Green mobs are going to be more penalties, and then gray and then deep gray for nearly like easy kills on those mobs going forward. So that's what the new con system will be. It is a much larger range. He was showing mobs that were like 8 levels lower than him that were still blue and some dark blue mobs. So you're going to be able to level up on mobs for a much longer amount of time, which means you're probably going to start seeing people well into their 40s, maybe even hitting level 50 once these changes come in, because there's mobs in the game that are already in the high 30s that you can now go fight. So we're going to start seeing people leveling up pretty easily after that. The stun mob abilities fix is coming in. So with this most recent patch, there were some bugs with a stun. When you get stunned, you then target yourself. That was causing a lot of issues. Well, those are fixed in the testing or that they're doing on their end and setting up on their end. That will be coming in. He also adjusted some things, making the those mobs abilities interruptible. So some of those abilities like the rush, the frenzied rush, those kinds of things are now going to be interruptible instead of just going off and just guarantee they're going to stun you, which is really nice. So we're not constantly stunned all the time. So look for those in the next update whenever that may happen. He did not give a time frame on that. Starting to work on the Shaman at the 1 hour, 3 minute mark. He's been working on the Shaman. There is already some changes to the Shaman that we have seen, like the new pets, the changes to some of the buffs going all the way up to level 40. There are more changes coming, and he actually works on those throughout the entirety of the stream. So if you want to check that out, you're just going to have to skip through the stream. I'll try to cover a couple points as we go here of some of those big things. Discussion about Summoner Necro feeling bland. There were a few people that were talking about that and saying basically the Summoner and Necro are not feeling great right now. They just feel like, send in pet, do some nukes, do some dots, etc. And he kind of commented on that, basically saying that they are making changes to that. The Summoner will be a little bit down the road. It is not something that is easy to fix because they have to do some coding for that. Let's see, dot testing. There was some dot testing that was happening around the 1 hour, 38 minute mark. Just going over some of the dots in the game, mostly with the Shaman, trying to get the Shaman working properly, increasing some of the damage, decreasing some of the damage, just adjusting the Shaman dots. So if you want to check that out, that's when that was. There was a stat conversation going over some of the stats around the 1 hour, 49 minute mark. If you were curious about stats, didn't really go into a lot of new information there, but a little bit of a stat conversation. Itemizing power. This is where the stat conversation kind of led to, because at one point Joppa misspoke, not a big deal, but throwing it out there, where he was saying that intelligence and wisdom would actually increase the damage and gives you spell power. It doesn't do that. He corrected himself as he went through it, and he's like, I am incorrect. Sorry. Those stats do not increase spell power, but they will be itemizing spell power in the future. So we can expect to start seeing items with spell power on them sometime in the future. This is not something that is coming in today or anything like that, or any upcoming patch, but that will be something that they will be adding. There will be named wild bloods coming into the game. So at some point, there will be some named wild bloods, which is really nice to see since we currently are getting a lot more wild blood content over in Silent Plains. And it would be nice if we could have something, to actually go for similar to what we had in Eastern Plains. The fog density situation, this is around the 2-hour mark. He kind of talked about the fog density situation, how in certain areas like Mad Run, it is super dense fog. He did mention that that is a little bit higher than they want it to be, a little bit too dense, so they are going to be dialing that in. But he would like to see in the future that type of fog that's super dense like that to roll in and then maybe roll back out. So like a temporary super dense fog would be really awesome, but he's going to have to check with the coders to see if that is a possibility. He thinks that it is a possibility, but he's not 100% sure on that. So look for that in the future. Should be something really cool to see. Discussion about how we, the community, think the devs are clueless. This is around the 2-hour and 4-minute mark. This is a big kind of, not really big discussion, but a big topic, I guess. And Joppa kind of went into some detail about that. And, basically going in and saying that if you go out on to Reddit and you go out on the Discord, you will probably see that a lot of people are, negatively talking about the game. I sometimes am told that I talk too negatively about the game. I totally understand where people are coming from, and there is a lot of negativity toward the game. But Joppa basically was saying that, if you were to read that and you were to go based on what you hear and see out there, that it seems as though the devs are clueless. And he said, I assure you, we are not clueless. We know what's going on. We hear your feedback. We see your comments, and we are doing what we can to fix it. So he was basically reassuring us that they are, in fact, working very hard on the game, and they're very, very passionate. If you want to see more about that, you can go check that out around the 2-hour, 4-minute mark. I'm not going to go over every little detail that he said, but I felt more reassured after he said that. Some of you may not, whatever. That's totally on, what you want to feel, but you can go check that out yourselves. 2-hour, 26-minute mark. He talked about shamans a little bit more and what his plan are for the shamans for yesterday. So what he was going to be doing for the rest of the evening as he works on the game, and things that he was going to be working on were the shaman pets, dots, there's a shaman nuke, the weathering line, walk of the Aegis is back in the game and is slightly changed. So you might want to check that out. Basically, walk of the Aegis, and he goes over that. Let's see, at the 2-hour, 37-minute mark. Shows off Walk of the Aegis and how it works. Basically, it is going to be one of those things where you cast it, you mark a location, and then you can run out, do something, and then you can snap back to that. But he's also adding in a component that will, if you get rooted, it will break some CC. It's a chance to break CC effects and bring you back to that location. So cool thing with Mark of the Aegis. And then also a new/changed buff, which is called Mark of the Fireclaw. It's an older buff, like it's a buff that you guys as shamans already have, but it is going to be changed, improved a little bit, nerfed a little bit, and then added to a little bit. So it's a little bit of a couple of different things there. Basically, it's removing the dexterity component of that buff, which a lot of people were like, whoa, why are you removing our dex on here? But they're going to be increasing the fire resistance that it already buffs, making that go a little bit higher, and they're going to be adding fire damage to it. So it's not going to be like bonus fire damage like the wizard's ability, but it's going to be added fire damage if you do fire damage. So for a wizard, for example, I might do Ember Blast here, and it will add damage to my Ember Blast. He did kind of go over some of the numbers for that, but obviously those things are going to be tweaked down the line, which we'll talk about balancing here near the end. Druids will have a res confirmed. That was at the 2-hour, 40-minute mark if you want to hear Joppa say it. But it is confirmed Druids will have res. I believe in this last iteration, last update, some of the Druid spells made it to the vendors, and people didn't see that there was a Druid res on there, so they were commenting and asking about that. Windstrider change had to have some room for growth. So basically, it is a nerf to the original Windstrider, but it is so that we have some growth to make Windstrider better on Shaman. I know that we're doing a lot of Shaman changes here. We're talking about a lot of Shaman changes, and that's because Shaman is the current iteration that he is working on. I keep saying we. I'm not doing any of this. At the 2 hour, 43-minute mark, he did talk about adding reagent abilities. The only example that he gave of that would be an example of adding night vision into the game. Currently, night vision is not in the game. It's not. This isn't, something that they're adding in right now. But he gave the example that you might need to have a certain reagent to then cast the spell of night vision on your target. These are things that are going to be coming in the future, which is something that I really like to see. I can't wait till we have more use of some of these random drops that we're getting. Like reagents right now are only mostly used for alchemy, but it would be nice if they are used in other places, other than just sitting in our inventory or selling to vendors. Necros, they're going to get more CC type abilities, some more crowd control on the Necro. He didn't elaborate on what those kind of things were going to be, but we will be seeing more of that hopefully in the future. Let's see, completing the class kits before working on balance. This was kind of one of those things where a lot of people were saying, oh my God, the Shaman pets are too powerful. I was one of those people. Shaman pets right now are too powerful. He admitted that they were a little bit. I don't think I went over that yet, but he did say that he felt that the Shaman pets in this current iteration of the game that we're playing are a little bit too strong. They will be adjusting that in the future. But he did say that class kits are the priority right now, getting the class kit in and then making adjustments later. So, excuse me. So what he's basically talking about there is getting in all of the abilities. So when a new ability might come in, the Shaman right now is what they're working on. Next up is going to be the Cleric. Then he's going to start looking at tanks. You're going to see some of these classes spike in power compared to some of the other classes that are in the game. And then they're going to go back and make adjustments back down. So basically, at the end of the day, he said, have fun, enjoy these power spikes, do what you can with them. And then, later on, we're going to make adjustments. Be prepared that those things will be adjusted. So that is basically where that is. Not to say that they're not going to make adjustments in between if something is overly powerful, but just be prepared that that will happen. One of the last things that he talked about was the varying dot ticks. So people were kind of talking about that. I believe they recently changed some of the dot ticks from like 3 seconds and increased them to like 4 seconds to do a little bit, a little bit more damage, but the decreased time. So anyway, he talked about varying dot ticks and how that might work. And then he also talked about a type of dot that was in EverQuest 1. I forget what the term is. I forget what the term is right now off the top of my head. I don't know why, but basically it's a building dot. So a dot that, does 1 damage, and then the next tick it does 2 damage. The next tick it might do 4 damage or something along those lines, where it just continues to build the longer it is on them. The other varying dot ticks, where right now there are some dots that tick for 24 seconds and they do damage every 2 seconds. And then there's other dots that tick for 48 seconds and they do damage every 4 seconds. So they're still the same amount kind of, but they just tick for harder, then maybe faster, lower damage, etc. Those kinds of things. He then ended the stream basically saying, I'm feeling motivated to get some of this Shaman stuff done. So we should see a lot of Shaman changes coming in very soon in, the coming updates, maybe by next Wednesday. He did not say that. I'm saying that. We're looking at every Wednesday. He did mention that, I believe, again during the stream, that they are still looking at doing patches every Wednesday, but he cannot confirm nor deny that. It's just that's what the team is still looking at doing. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Anyway, that's it for Joppa's summary.